Hi, so this review is on The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug Extended Edition on Blu-ray. So, what is The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug? The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug continues the adventure of the title character Bilbo Baggins as he journeys with the wizard Gandalf and 13 dwarves, led by Thorin Oakenshield, on an epic quest to reclaim the Lonely Mountain and the lost dwarf kingdom of Erebor. So, subjectively speaking, The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug is the middle chapter of the Hobbit film trilogy that's based off of the individual single novel The Hobbit, which was written by J.R.R. Tolkien. The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug is written and directed by Peter Jackson, and like I said, I watched the extended edition. And this was the very first time I've ever watched The Desolation of Smaug. So, as I said, subjectively speaking, The Desolation of Smaug, in my opinion, is a couple steps down from An Unexpected Journey. I know that's going to be a bit of a game changer towards other critiques and users watching this video, in the sense of a lot of people said An Unexpected Journey and the whole Hobbit trilogy as a whole could have been condensed into one 3-hour movie. Well, for me, An Unexpected Journey was filled, and I mean filled, with story-driven just scenes all over the place. And Peter Jackson worked his own visionary writing and story into An Unexpected Journey's already preceded main story, and I think he juxtaposed storylines and story plots very well with Unexpected Journey. In The Desolation of Smaug, he tried to recreate that writing magic by implementing his own side plots into the main story to get another 3-hour behemoth. So, The Desolation of Smaug is still a good movie, if not great. I don't think it's anywhere near as good as An Unexpected Journey, mainly because the storytelling has a lot of issues in The Desolation of Smaug, and I will agree with critics. I do believe it's mainly because it's the middle chapter of the Hobbit trilogy and the storyline. So, the best parts about The Desolation of Smaug, in my personal opinion, the visuals stick out a lot better in The Desolation of Smaug than they do in An Unexpected Journey, where I critiqued An Unexpected Journey, especially with like the rain pouring and just a lot of the CGI work, like the orcs, which they didn't look as terrible as the rain, but you could definitely tell it was CGI. The rainfall in An Unexpected Journey just looked so unrealistic. It's like they added in rain droplets, even though they could have done practical effects for that, but it's like they added in rainfall, CGI working, and then it's like Peter Jackson was like, let's add in some wind waves into them, and it just kind of looked like, I don't know, it just looked like somebody was trying to fan rain, and it was really just a white line in the rain. In The Desolation of Smaug, it mostly works well with visual splendor. The CGI and the practical effects, they actually work very cohesively together, side by side. There were a couple gripes I had near the end of the film that I'll get into, but mainly, above all, the visual splendor of The Desolation of Smaug, especially with Smaug himself. The whole film looks and sounds absolutely amazing. I would say the visual would be a 9, the audio a 9 to 10. The reason I give the visuals a 9 is because near the end of the film, Smaug the dragon looks absolutely brilliant 95% of the time. In some scenes, his whole entire body is moving and running and flailing around things, and it just looks beautiful. But then there are some scenes where it's face towards his head, and he's just spinning his head like this, and it looks so choppily done. Like, I don't know if it's because they used the HFR 3D cameras or what, but like I said, the scaled back views of Smaug's whole entire body and head and neck and everything looks beautiful. But then when you get up close to when he's spinning his head, when he spins his head, it kind of looks like this. And you can definitely tell that they implemented and added in a lot of CGI for that. Probably for the worse, obviously, since I was able to pick out that. And another problem I had with the visuals is another scene whenever Bilbo first meets up with Smaug and Smaug wakes up and everything. Most scenes look great and brilliant, like I said. But then there's one scene with Bilbo where it shows him standing on and around the gold. There's just a scene where I don't know if it was just too faded looking or what, but something about it, it just screamed how unrealistic it looked. Everything outside of those two scenes, though, in this whole entire film, in this whole entire 3-hour epic film, everything outside of those two scenes look brilliant. Otherwise, outside of those, it would be a 10 out of 10 for visuals and audio. So into the story, like I said, the story, Peter Jackson tried to implement his own writing creativity and art into this one, as he did with An Unexpected Journey, with extra side plots that added more dimension and immersion into the world and into the main story that Tolkien previously established. And I will say, from the second act all the way to the end, the story is great. It keeps you riveted and it keeps you immersed. My problem is within the first act up to the second act, and even through to the halfway point of the second act. Now, the story itself isn't terrible by any means. It's mostly capturing all of the novel parts that they're trying to portray in the film, with some added scenes here and there in the first act. My problem is, I would imagine the camera work combined with the editing, they just, I don't know, it's not nearly as bad as Taken 3's fence scene, but I just felt like the first 20 to 30 minutes, maybe it was the camera work, but I felt like the movie was trying to rush itself into the next environment, into the next location, into the next region. And maybe it was because they were trying to do a little bit more quick shots with the cameras than they did in An Unexpected Journey. And with that, it just felt so uneven. Like I said, the story itself was fine, and what they implemented into it was mostly fine. But I have an issue with the storytelling for the story. If they had stuck with all of the storytelling for An Unexpected Journey, I think this would have been even better of a film. But as it stands, because of the visuals, the visual discrepancies I had, as well as the storytelling, this is definitely a peg down from An Unexpected Journey. An Unexpected Journey is 4 minutes shorter than Desolation of Smaug, but An Unexpected Journey kept me riveted and immersed through the entire film, despite the rainfall and despite how the orcs looked. And that's another thing I should also compliment the Desolation of Smaug. The orcs and everybody else that I criticized for An Unexpected Journey looking not bad or ugly by any means, but just looked not practical and more CGI ridden, at least they did fix the majority of those issues from An Unexpected Journey in the Desolation of Smaug. But in doing so, they also added in more visual issues. And on top of all of this stuff, and this is going to be a spoiler, it's years later that I'm reviewing this, and so I'm sure most of you have watched this already, but still, spoiler alert. This film, The Desolation of Smaug, is not a finished story. It concludes with a cliffhanger. It doesn't matter how good a cliffhanger is, at the end of the day, anything made an ending with a cliffhanger is bad. It's automatically a negative. And the story within the cliffhanger, I understand it. It works well, but you don't end a film the way that they ended The Desolation of Smaug, where they basically captured your attention because Smaug is getting out there. He's going to kill everybody that nobody wants him to kill, and he survived the death that they tried to literally pour onto him. And after that, he broke out and he started going after for vengeance because they woke him up, basically. And then they just kind of end it with him flying off and Bilbo just saying, "Oh no," and then it just blacks out, kind of like The Sopranos ending. Now, I get what they were going for. I get Peter Jackson's initiative with this. My problem is not the story within the cliffhanger itself, it's just the cliffhanger in general. You don't end anything with a cliffhanger. Look at Game of Thrones as a great example. The first 6 seasons at least. I'm not talking about those god awful last 2 seasons, but seasons 1 to 6 of Game of Thrones. Every single episode had loose threads at the end of every episode, but each episode told its own story from beginning to end. You could go in to the first episode, you could go into any episode. I'm not saying you wouldn't be thoroughly confused doing that, but you would go into any episode, but you would see every episode had its own beginning and end for the story. And it had to continue, and it had like a backstory if you watched recurring episodes before and after it. The Desolation of Smaug is not meant to be viewed on its own. And that's the biggest problem I have with the Desolation of Smaug. An Unexpected Journey, because it's the prequel of literally everything having to do with the Lord of the Rings trilogy, you can definitely go into that just even open-minded, and it works perfectly well. The Desolation of Smaug is definitely hindered by its middle chapter curse. And because of all of the issues I have with it, the visual oddities, the story quirks, the editing process, I have to give The Desolation of Smaug a 7 out of 10. It is still a good film overall. Watch it. Just go into it not trying to rip it apart, because otherwise you definitely can rip it apart a lot more than An Unexpected Journey. An Unexpected Journey, really the only thing that I got out of it and what I understood from others is that with how long it was and just the story within it, because it was based only on like the first 125 pages of the one single novel, they added in story elements for side plots. An Unexpected Journey, though, it immerses you to the point where you don't care. You watch a 3-hour behemoth and you are enthralled and immersed. In The Desolation of Smaug, they try to recreate that, but it's bogged down and hindered by their own storytelling creativities. So as I said, The Desolation of Smaug for me is a 7 out of 10. Thank you.